AI is reshaping businesses, and ignoring it could leave your industry disrupted. I'm Rajan, and this is Pivotal Clarity. We talk to those building or using AI, founders and engineers with real world experience. Our aim is to cut through the hype and see where AI is truly making an impact. If you're a business or following tech trends, these conversations offer clearer insight than most of the press. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to Pivotal Clarity, an AI podcast. Our guest today is Arshad Hisham. Arshad is building the future of AI and robotics. As a founder and CEO of Engine Dynamics with a vision of building intuitive and practical robotics and AI solution. Arshad is not just another tech CEO, he's an inventor, engineer, and educator all rolled into one. And his company recently raised over $150 million. What intrigues me most about Arshad is how he's approaching AI development holistically, not just focused on the technology, but on cultivating the next generation of AI professionals through initiatives called Future Nods Program. We'll dig more into that as we speak. I'm very excited for this episode to learn from Arshad's journey and hear his thoughts on where AI is headed. Let's get started. Arshad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rajan. Pleasure to be on the show and, happy to contribute.
Let's start at the beginning. What made you decide to found Engine Dynamic? Was there a specific problem you encountered or was there an observation that sparked the idea? I'm curious to know about your thought process.
Sure. Engine Dynamics is, just to give you a bit of a background, it's my fifth company. So I've started 5 companies since my business school. My companies have grown in complexity and I started Engine Dynamics after I exited my last company in 2015. And 2015, I think there were all the right ingredients for a revolution in AI automation robotics. I think it was a great year. The cost of components, data, cloud was decreasing exponentially. So I kind of figured this is a great time to do something in AI automation robotics. And this is where the future would be. And I think the last 8 years have proven me right. If I would like to kind of, at that point, I think, we're kind of heading in the right direction. And there are a lot of exciting opportunities happening in AI automation robotics. And to go back further along, so I am a big science fiction fan, as with most tech entrepreneurs. Early on, when I was 11 years old, I read a lot of Asimov's Foundation series. It just kind of fascinated me for what a future would look like with humans, robots, AI, all of the mix. It was very fascinating. So I was driven very early on from a young age to bring a lot of these ideas to reality, that kind of drove me throughout my career. And I was just involved in a lot of projects where I got a lot of experiences. So this is kind of really the starting point. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how I ended up founding Engine Dynamics.
Let's talk a little bit about Origami, the platform that you're building. It seems to be the core of what you're building at Engine Dynamics. Curious about how building a platform works.
So the idea behind that, as with all companies, in hindsight, it's easy to connect the dots. But when we started out, we were creating a robot product, which had a home robot platform. We were never had a platform play in the mind, but as we build the different components, we build out the product, we got some feedback from a couple of accelerators in the US, including Plug and Play. Then got feedback from a lot of companies. We started creating very products specifically for healthcare. And then we realized that the set of components that we had is kind of reusable in AI automation robotics. So, and that's why it's called the Origami platform. So it's like a trunk. You open the trunk box and you have different components. And you can rearrange these components and create different parts, just like you create the paper origami. That's why it's called the Origami platform. That, just get the paper origami you can recreate. So this right now is at the core of the company. It contains all the components that you build. It will be a future intellectual property for the company as we grow. And our vision for the company is that for the first 2 years, we have a lot of different hardware we're shipping. For the next 2 years for phase 2, which could be more than 2 years, is that we become hardware agnostic, more software specific, software bundle specific. And phase 3, we become software and hardware agnostic. We become a pure play platform. So this is the vision that I have for the company. And then third-party providers could pretty much use our platform to create their own products. So this is a vision. But it's very easy. I mean, the trap with a lot of platform companies is that it's very easy to say that you're building a platform, and platforms takes a lot of time to get traction. To get the inflection point, it's a very hard thing to build. Now, all this runaway success that you hear about has been at what I call them the 10-year overnight stories. If it is not easy to platform. So what we are building here is actually we are creating the use case for the platform upfront. So we are showing that the platform can exist, and then we open up the platform. So this is a vision that we have at Inject. So that's why you see this unique strategy.
So you said this is like a evolving journey, but let's say somebody is getting started right now, and when you're building and selling AI, what's the best way to get started? Maybe do you start it as a service? Do you build out a product and then think about platform? Or now what you know, is it better to sort of start from building a platform from the right at the start?
No, I think I would still advise for the near-term use cases. I think the platform is definitely a longer-term play. And this is kind of where a lot of the opportunities lie. I mean, the unique thing with AI, as you very well know, is at the speed at which things are happening and developing, right? I mean, it's so rapid. And there is always this, I tell this a lot to my other founder friends, that I'm always waiting for the next OpenAI release to see how many startup business model it kills. This is okay. So there is always a risk that your whole business model is become obsolete for the next OpenAI or large models. So I think a smarter strategy for entrepreneurs, I think there are two routes now for entrepreneurs. Either you go the very long run, which would need a lot of capitalization, or you build a product layered around that, which has some unique services. And this is not, they're not just using LLM under the hood. I think those are not sustainable. A lot of the startups using LLM under the hood, which I'm saying is, we need to create a secondary ecosystem, which would be kind of building around this, the primary ecosystem. And that's where I think there's a lot of fantastic opportunities for enterprises and business. And if you can scale that, I think it's a great way to build. So that's my advice. My advice is that you should concentrate on building out this use cases and try to scale that up.
You talked about platform games being like Big Boys Club, a lot of fundraising. You recently increased your investments to about $150 million. That's a lot of money. How do you think about allocation of capital? How do you actually split this fund? How should one think about it?
See, the capital allocation is more towards, so we have a post-IPO strategy. The game only begins at an IPO, right, for us. And then the real game starts. You have quarterly pressure. You need to meet the numbers. You need to meet the growth. So a lot of this reserve as we kind of grow post-IPO and figure out how do we kind of get to the right points, or we kind of get to the right inflection points. So a lot of it is for growth. A lot of it for R&D, pretty much, and distribution. So distribution, I think distribution is a new competitive advantage. As you probably know, distribution is key. How do you distribute your products and what synergies you can bring? So I think it's a long game. And given the new funding scenarios, I think I was reading somewhere for the new round that OpenAI did, the minimum size for VCs to get in on that round is $250 million. That's a minimum size. Just want to say, let that sink in for a minute. That was a total fund allocation size a decade back for one single fund across multiple portfolios. That's a minimum size for OpenAI's latest round. So I think the capital game is changing. And that's where I think you need to be very conservative with how you allocate your budget, how you kind of figure out where to go on the next steps. So this is kind of a key thing. So we are playing along. So we have a clear post-IPO strategy where we'll allocate different budget sizes for different use cases. And that's a short and long answer.
You are building robots to fill jobs. That's a big order, right? So what kind of jobs are we talking about? Let's say I run a hospital or a hotel. Why would I want a robot instead of human workers? What's the real advantage there?
I think there are certain targeted healthcare use cases. There is an acute labor shortage. A classic example is elderly care. I mean, there is a massive and acute shortage in Europe, in North America, in Japan, these countries very specifically, they've been doing a lot of R&D into elderly care, a lot of research into elderly care. So our vision for the robots is that we have simpler form factors in the near term, which are targeting the low-hanging fruits over 5 to 10 years. And then you have complex form factors coming in, like the humanoid and rovers later on in the longer term. And all this is powered by the underlying Origami AI platform. So the platform keeps on building up competency and we power it. We call this the phased approach. The phased approach is, we call it because we have simpler form factors targeting near-term use cases, including healthcare, telemedicine, elderly care, restaurants. In terms of hospitality, there's a lot of shortage there. And then you move on to the complex form factor. And then it gets interesting because if you talk about humanoids, and I say this to a lot of people, that using humanoids is actually the ultimate hack. Why? Because we have created the world, the whole world, for humanoids. Think about that for a minute. The escalators, the cars, the buildings is designed for humanoids. So we have invested trillions of dollars creating an infrastructure. So the whole idea of creating a humanoid is not, see, people get confused. They think that we're creating a humanoid to look like a human. The answer is no. The humanoids are created because it's the quickest hack to access or tap into $1 trillion investment in made in assets over the last 100 years. So if we create a humanoid form factor, we can tap knobs, cars, escalators, everywhere. And humanoid is a massive disruption model. Because once that comes in, we could be talking about covering up at least 30% of the GDP could be powered by humanoids. It can be anywhere. Manual labor, specifically manual labor. And once that goes in, so there is a lot of disruption coming our way. So this is in a nutshell, the roadmaps. But definitely our vision is to create a better future and a safer and a better future for humans, right? So we want to improve the quality of life. We want to free up people to do the things they love the most and not get burdened with boring, repetitive, and dangerous jobs. So that's where I think these robots will play an important part in freeing up productive and leisure time so humans don't lie.
You spent a lot of time working in AI. Can you share an example or a time when you saw someone use AI in a way that you didn't expect?
Just to give you a bit of a background, I published my first paper in AI in 98. And it is not even called an AI, I remember. It was called the Coherent Back Propagation Network. And we used it for my robot soccer project at NIT. I did my undergrad at Odyssey. So we did a project on soccer robots. And we used it to predict the direction of the robots. We had to train the model, use the back propagation. And it was fascinating. It was around the same time that you remember when the first digit reading ML algorithm came in was around 90. So this was around the time. So that is a pivotal point where things really took off. Interesting use cases for AI. I think one was predicting the office commute was kind of an interesting use case. Yeah, but I think it was on a very personal note. Somebody used it to predict a local problem and it is very innovative. And if you see, most of the inventions have been created by very smart but very lazy programmers and inventors. They are the real smart cookies, right? They invent some tech because they're very lazy. They don't want to kind of waste time. So this is kind of where I think this has happened. Some of the best use cases of AI I've seen are people who are like very smart, inventive, lazy inventors who kind of created a solution to their day-to-day problems. And that's where I think you see a lot of innovation. And that's true for the past, the pre-AI era. And if you remember the 2010s, 90s, it was true then. If you remember the Windows developers and hackers and the Linux developers, we found the best innovation from this group of people. So I've seen the best use case of AI from similar set of people.
Let's say you're having dinner with 3 people from history to talk about AI and creativity. Who are those folks? What would you ask each one of them?
It's a tough one. So I think one would be obviously Alan Turing. The question would be like whether he can predict the direction the AI is making right now and whether a Turing test will still be applicable. I think we are far reaching a point where the Turing test is no longer sufficient.
That's very interesting. This is the second guest that I'm hearing me say that. Looks like all of us want to go back and talk to Turing about the Turing test.
That's the first person I want to talk to, right? I think in terms of AI. And all the other people I want to speak to are currently such a new field, are currently right now involved in all this process. So there is kind of such a developing field, and obviously fascinated by a lot of work by Mustafa Sulaiman, I think, from DeepMind. Not just the tech side. I mean, he has written a book which is an important read for anybody, which explores what are we dealing with, what is the next decade is going to unfold as all this AI unfolds in the world about society. So from that perspective, I think, this is something that would be to predict the next 10 years. And, because he predicted in 2010 and they started DeepMind the next 10 years, which was kind of accurate and kind of doing what to do. And my third person to speak to would be like, obviously, Tom Altman. Tom Altman, classic question is that he was speaking in one of the recent events that the more slow, he's going to operate at not 100x, 100,000x because of the new changes in AI. So we're going to see a monster uptick in the more slow in terms of processors and not this for the next decade. So how would that, and this is so wild that I don't think we as a species can comprehend the scale of this transformation. We are not wired to understand the scale of transformation. So how would the next decade look like with the 100,000x more slow in play for genetics, for AI and self-learning AI and AGI, so we're fast approaching. And we can already see the seeds there with the latest version, the strawberry coming out. There are seeds of AGI already planted. It's already moving to that direction. So now it looks, there are a lot of bugs right now. We test, things are not working, but this is very similar to the early video generators 2 years back. It is very buggy, but now it's super smooth. I'll wait and see what the next 2 years hold. So my third person would be to Tom Altman to predict the next 10 years with 100,000x more slow. What's going to be?
I've seen you talk about this thing called zero corporate bloat and being ethical. What does it mean in practice and why is it important?
I think a lot of time as companies grow bigger, you tend to accumulate bloat. It is buffer and there is inefficiency grow. Not intentionally, it tends to happen because the incentives of different actors in a company changes as a company grows. Some enter into kingdom building. I call it the empire building. The executives start building empires. They try to build up silos. And the goal is to maximize, which is not wrong, because the problem is many of the companies are incentivizing that indirectly. So this is what tends to happen. So over here, I think for me, my vision is clear. I think I need everybody to be aligned with zero corporate bloat. That means it's as efficient as possible, as an agile startup. And there were recent talks, even I wrote this out probably like 4 or 5 years back. But very recently, there's a lot of talk about founder mode. I'm sure you've heard about the founder mode talk that's going on. I think it's very similar. So this is the founder mode I'm talking about. I had practiced this. I think it's very true. Absolutely true. Because, I had to kind of change gears. I do kind of go down tires and kind of explain what's going on. And that has led to efficiency. So one way of cutting out corporate bloat and cutting out politics is to kind of operate at different levels, not just have a higher. And that's founder mode. And this is very true because if you give too much autonomy everywhere, I'm not saying it's not micromanaging, but the problem is there is a tendency to accumulate bloat along the whole chain of command. That is like an law of physics, that is where the natural direction is. The only way to prevent it is activate founder mode every once in a quarter, go down, scale it up. Then you can reduce the bloat, not remove it. You can make it like 10% rather than 60%. And I call that the founder mode. The company needs to be running in short mode.
Let me do a quick round of short questions. You can just give me the first answer that comes to your mind. A book that shaped your approach to AI. I know you already talked about one book, but is that the same book?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a foundation series by Isaac Asimov. Yeah, it is a very unusual selection because it is not a textbook it is more of a seed generating book, right? So what AI could do. So that way, yes, that was my biggest book.
One big misconception about AI that irritates you.
I think this classic Hollywood stereotype of AI turning evil and destroying humans. I think it is wrongly phrased. I think there is a big existential risk for AI to destroy humanity, but not in the way that movies depict. Would be like the paperclip maximizer problem, where you design an AI to maximize paperclip and it turns the whole world into paperclip and accidentally destroys the human race. So this is a risk. Not, the AI becoming jealous of humans and doesn't make any sense. The most depiction of Hollywood AI and robots doesn't make any sense. So that is what irritates me a lot.
What's your favorite productivity hack?
I call it the 440 kind of a thing. I try to do at least 4 things in a day. I have a big schedule agenda. So 4 things I can fully complete and I have a list. And then I keep on moving and have 40 pending items in the next slot. So this way I'm very organized. Every Sunday I keep my 440 and every day I make sure that I finish 4, but more than 4 I don't target. And it's surprising because in a week you can get at least 24 items done. If you try to do everything at the same time, you'll get only 5 to 6 items done. So I think having this, I call the 440. So 40 items pipeline, 4 items to complete in a day. So this is the best thing and it doesn't matter. You can use any tool, Excel or whatever, but follow this process. I think it will work wonderfully.
One word to describe the future of AI.
I think it's fantastic. Would be the one word. You can't even imagine it. It's got to be fantastic.
Tell me a little bit about the Future Nodes program that you're doing. Why are you running it? Most companies that I know, they just hire talent. You seem to be creating it. Do you feel that it is worth the effort that you're putting into it?
Sure. I think Future Nodes, again, was originally designed for training our engineers and our in-house team. So that was the original intention. But then we had a couple of universities and engineering colleges that reached out saying that they want to launch a BTech program with the Future Nodes initiative. So the reach out came from the industry and from the universities. And then we converted to an engineering degree. We had schools. We had a partner who was doing school education. And we kind of interfaced with that. So it kind of started out. And if you see Future Nodes now currently is at the intersection of what we create internally and this external partners. So it's kind of sweet right in the middle. And it's a great way to build talent. And there is a massive reskilling going on because every job, this is a good McKinsey study, which said that at least 95% of the job would have more than 70% of their task changed to an AI specific subtask. So there is massive reskilling going on. And it's not jobs are going to be taken away. I think the jobs are going to be redefined. So people have to be retrained. And this will be the biggest problem of the next decade. And there's a great way to address that is have this program and roll this out and, make sure that we have the next set of innovators coming out.
As a robotics company, how do you make money? What's your fundamental business model?
We have different models. We lease our products and we charge for services. So we have a monthly recurring model and we can sell the data and software on top on a monthly recurring basis. So this is kind of our key structure that we follow. But the harder thing as a robotics company is that it's a very capital intensive business. The enterprise SaaS world is beautiful. It generates cash and you can scale and you can predict and you can go back and iterate in a week. In robotics, it takes 6 months to iterate. And to iterate, you need to raise further cash, you need to pivot. So I think there are harder problems in getting to PMF. So that, allows for some different business models and different cash flow and different sim lanes to create, which is what you can see on our website. You're not a single revenue stream company or multiple cash flows also right.
What questions do you think that people are not thinking about AI and robotics and they should?
I think one important question is I think the biggest problem we're going to face for society, for government, for institution is that the world is not ready for the massive upheaval that's about to happen in the next 5 years. And the government said nobody's prepared for it. I'm not talking about the risk of AI. I'm talking about the labor reskilling, the change of how we're going to deliver work. The shift is foundational. And if you see our parents' generation and the parents before that, such foundational shift happened over a generation. So they could pretty much get into a job, retire. And this has become accelerated now. I think if you see our generation, we're going to look at 2 to 3 professions in our lifetime. We're not going to have a single career. And if you see the next wave that is coming, it's going to get more accelerated. This needs a new way of learning, teaching, learn and learn, skill, reskill. This will be the modus operandi. So I'm not seeing a lot of the government, a lot of the educational institutions taking this very seriously. I think when this arrives in 5 years, there will be a lot of chaos and, a lot of reactive measures than proactive measures that have taken. And this is serious conversation that every major entity and government entity should be having at the moment.
So last question, Arshad, what is one book, one tool and one habit that you would recommend for people that want to actually keep up with this shift that you said that they're all underprepared for?
The book would be the Mustafa Sulaiman's book, that he wrote recently, and that is a very good read. And I think, he wrote on DeepMind and that's one he wrote recently. So, and it's called The Coming Wave. That book alone is one that will kind of prepare us what's coming. And in terms of tool, again, it's a bit of a off-channel topic. The tool I could recommend is, again, kind of a book. There are a lot of tools and processes. If you read the old Stoic philosophies, they have a lot of toolkits that prepare you for change in, lot of uncertain times. So you should use a lot of those frameworks to apply some of the changes coming in, how to retrain, how to reskill, how to enjoy the process rather than worry about the outcome. So this is kind of some of the key messages. So some of the tools and frameworks used, and this is kind of very nicely connecting to ancient Greece and Rome and the current day art. But I think those tools and frameworks are still relevant to all the things you're doing. The new habit, this is very obvious, is learn and unlearn repeatedly. Does not mean to read endless amount of books. Just learn and unlearn how we want to learn by watching videos, by doing it. And that's kind of key. And that keeps our brains young. That keeps us, adaptable to the new situation. And we need to be adaptable to the changing circumstance we're going to be. So learn and unlearn is a very important habit that you need to master.
Arshad, thank you so much for joining us at the Pivotal Clarity show. It was such a fun conversation with you.
Likewise, Rajan. Enjoyed it. Great questions. Enjoyed the conversation.
That's it for this episode of Pivotal Clarity. This is an Opeka podcast. Opeka is an accelerator for global Indian founders building AI software companies. We're exploring the fast-changing world of AI together with our listeners. If you like this podcast, you can find more on our website and other popular podcast apps. Subscribe if you want to keep up.